Kojo Yankson is also ready. We're going to have motivation from him. Kojo, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Daddy Roro. It's great to see you. It's been a few days.
Yeah, great to see you as well. And what's your motivation about this morning?
Well, today it's about the one thing that our nation will need if we have any chance of beating this COVID-19 challenge.
Great. But right here, we have to also keep you up to date with the latest business trends. And on AM Biz, the Ministry of Health, we already do know, has submitted about 30 and over herbal drugs for testing to find a possible efficacy or contamination if they are on the shelves, etc. So we'll take a look at that. Karen Dodo, a lady on the beat as well. And then we'll have Odilia in Tiamwa bringing to us that great package. But on the other hand, apart from business, we also do know that how we are able to ensure that the lockdown or the post-lockdown related issues are enforced will become critical. And Kojo Yankson, we have Obiamwa right here in the studio, a Deputy Minister for Local Government and Rural Development. And we've all been wondering, post-lifting of the lockdown measures, how we're going to enforce people wearing face masks, etc.
Yeah, it's an important aspect of the next step. Once the lockdown has been lifted, we need to actually make sure that our movements do not create danger for each other. So I'm very keen to find out how Mr. Obiamwa and his colleagues are going to ensure that the president's directives can be enforced in a way that doesn't obstruct human life, public life, but also doesn't create a public health crisis.
Now, for the many related things that Dr. Nsiah-Ansari has been talking about and making public in that interaction on PM Express, there was one poignant thing about what the data kept showing around the world about the number of people who really were in danger. We're talking about a demographic that will be ultimately old or are old, and we've seen a lot of fatalities among them. And he was saying that, well, in Africa, we seem to have a very youthful population, Kojo.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the case in Ghana as well. I think we have over 55% of the population being under the age of 35, which is wonderful in terms of, the workforce and the youthful resource of humanity. But the virus has also shown that even if it is killing more elderly than youthful, it is not sparing anyone. So the elderly are at risk from the youth. And so the fact that we have a more youthful population probably is a bigger risk for our elderly population. And all of these things need to be considered.
Exactly. And that's why we'll be doing a critical analysis of the demographics. That is the age bracket of the population, their sex, etc., who seem to be most at risk. Because when you do the analysis of what the conversation and the literature is, and all the study that has been done, there's a great indication that you have a good immune system. Sometimes you may have numbers that don't even show the symptoms at all, and they become the carriers and keep transmitting. And that's a concern. So we're going to have Professor Alfred Yamson, who is going to have a conversation with us on the back of all that analysis that we're going to have. But we'll intersperse all this with the latest news headlines, tell you about the latest news stories as well. But let's start the show with some motivation from Kojo.
Absolutely. Now, today's message is called The Real Enemy. Now, I've been thinking about a few things, like my twin cousins, Pingin and Kakra. Now, those two loved to fight when they were kids. They were always yelling and scratching and biting and punching and killing and slapping each other. They could go at it all day until someone else hit one of them. Immediately, they would stop fighting each other and start raining down a world of pain on whoever was dumb enough to attack one of them. Now, it was always an amusing sight. You know, how a common enemy could unite the brawling brothers so quickly. Now, those memories of Pingin and Kakra have got me thinking about a few other things, like how in Ghana we politicize every single issue. We seem to believe that there is an NPP-NDC angle to every situation of human life. You know, a couple of weeks ago, the Bank of Ghana Hospital became a topic for national conversation when the health minister suggested that the facility would be used to treat VIPs infected with COVID-19. Now, for some strange reason, instead of the conversation focusing on how to ensure the hospital is put to the most efficient use, it suddenly became a conversation about who built it, the NDC or the NPP. Can you imagine that? We're in a crisis and we need to save lives. But all some people cared about was scoring political points. It was ridiculous. Now, that was not the first time I had encountered this unnecessary politicization of issues in Ghana. From Dumsor to armed robberies to the disappearance of Castro, some Ghanaians will find a way of turning everything into a point-scoring exercise on the level of politics. Now, this is a true source of concern to me because as a nation, our problems do not care who we vote for. They affect us all, not just the followers of one party. Dumsor does not only plunge NDC followers into darkness. All Ghanaians bear the brunt. When the cedi depreciates, it affects livelihoods across the nation, livelihoods of CPP, PPP, NPP, NDC, all of us. When prices go up, they don't just single out members of one party to pay them. As a nation, our issues are no respecter of a person's political affiliation. So if our problems are not partisan in nature, then how can we solve them with partisan politics? How can we be hearing stories of people using our tax money to feed the poor, but only feeding those who can prove they belong to the ruling party? And how can the people who are sharing these stories about partisan food distribution be doing so without any concrete evidence to back their claims? And considering the seriousness of these accusations, how come there have been no announcements of investigations? See, partisanship, even when lives are at stake. Now, at this crucial time of life and death in Ghana, instead of us thinking of how to deploy medical staff across all of our hospitals to fight this virus, how could we seriously be wasting our time debating political parties and which ones built a hospital? Who built it? Why do we even care? Look, Condoleezza Rice seemed to know exactly how my twin cousins felt when she said, "We need a common enemy to unite us." My dear friends, there's no more common enemy to Ghana than the novel coronavirus. There's only one way we can fight this common enemy, and it will require you and I to do something totally out of our comfort zone, something we may never have had occasion to do in our entire lives. We are going to have to put Ghana before our party. Yeah, I know it's going to be difficult, but that is quite literally the only way to win this war. When Tony Blair took Britain to war in Iraq over weapons of mass destruction, it was after a bitter parliamentary battle. His own backbenchers voted against him in large numbers, and he ended up securing war approval by the skin of his teeth. But guess what? Once the vote was cast and the decision to go to war was made, the whole of Parliament got behind the action to send troops to Iraq. Suddenly, there was a common enemy called Saddam Hussein with his supposed weapons of mass destruction. And when it came to dealing with the enemy, there was no difference between Labour and Conservative Party. Members that found the ability to put aside their differences and unite behind an idea rather than a personality or a party. And that is Ghana's only way out of this terrifying predicament that the coronavirus has put us in. So please, my dear friends, I am not exaggerating when I say this is our only chance. And I wonder if you know what that means. It means if you have a party position on COVID-19, instead of a national or even a global position on it, then you are basically saying you do not wish for Ghana to beat this virus. Sorry, but there is no other logical explanation for why you would prefer to score political points with this disease instead of working together to beat it. And let's not be deceived. This is serious. According to the authorities, the modeling projects that 3 million of us will be infected. You think they will all be from one party? Do you know whether that number will include you or me? The problems affect all of us. So the solutions must come from all of us. My name is Kojo Yankson, and putting your country first means putting your politics second. Good morning, Ghana folk.
Well, away from the studio, Inner City and Zongo Development Minister Mustafa Hamid says some health experts have so far volunteered and have started educating persons living in the Zongos about coronavirus and also helping them on how to curb its spread in the communities. Speaking during the presentation of face masks, hand sanitizers, liquid soaps and other hygiene items to be distributed to about 40,000 homes by the Zongo Development Fund, he stated that the items they will be sharing to residents were all locally produced by persons who apparently also lived in the Zongos.
This is locally produced. So we decided, as the president's policy is, that we should empower our local people and empower local businesses. At the back of this, there are health professionals, Zongo health professionals, doctors, epidemiologists, nutritionists, and so on, who have volunteered in the next 3 months to, on the back of this, do public education within the Zongo communities on how to also protect ourselves against COVID-19. In the period of the lockdown, the Ministry of Inner City and Zongo Development distributed food items made up of rice, gari, beans, and so on, being our share of the government's food package for the lockdown period. That must be made distinct, because the government prioritizes inner cities and Zongo communities as part of the 400,000 households that the government targeted for distribution of food. We were also given a responsibility to do nearly 20,000 households within our areas of jurisdiction. I'm sure that there is no doubt in anybody's mind that when we talk about vulnerable communities in this country, the most vulnerable of those communities will be inner cities and Zongo communities. And I'm not sure that that is debatable. And therefore, if we are talking about people who most likely will be negatively impacted by the ravages of COVID-19, it will be the people that, if you want, we superintend over. In other words, the jurisdictions that are within the domain of the ministry and the Zongo Development Fund. And therefore, we have gotten indigenous Zongo people to produce these products. We intend to distribute them across the country. And I need to emphasize across the countries, across inner cities and Zongo communities across the country. We have in all 200,000 actually, if you want, bottles of soap, hand sanitizers, and about how many millions of face masks?
We are doing 1 million for this.
About 1 million face masks that we intend to distribute across the country in the next 3 months.
Well, so we have to do the newspapers, and look, we have Mamavi also here, so we're sandwiching the streaming gentleman, Kojo Yankson, the Kojo Yankson. Kojo, okay, so Kojo, Mamavi is doing Ghanaian Times, Daily Graphic and New Crusading Guide. Don't worry, call it, chill it. You are doing Ghanaian Times, the New Publisher, and then let me see which one I want to give you. I'm controlling the show. You do the Insight. Have you ever done the Insight before? Yeah, I think so.
Why not? It's always the first time.
Yeah, no, on radio you do that all the time. So you do Ghanaian Times, the New Publisher, and the Insight. All right.
Have you finished sharing?
Okay.
Can I say hi to Kojo?
Kojo.
Hey, Mama Busy.
Yo, baby.
I miss you, Papa.
Good for you. Where's your cup of coffee or tea or whatever you're drinking?
It's right here.
You
How
see,
did you know?
that's the thing when you work from home, you get a cup of coffee, and we get nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is that almost like an old cow?
Okay, guys, let's straight away dig into the newspapers. But it's good you're back and well with us, Kojo.
Yes, I was a bit ill for a couple of days last week.
Yeah.
But yeah, this week I'm completely fine.
Yeah, nice. All right, so should I start with the Daily Graphic?
Yeah, do start.
All right, front page of the Daily Graphic, here we go. Lifting of movement restrictions for groups. Two views all captured in the graphic today. Gexim Bank investment enhances COVID-19 fight, according to the CEO. And those of you who say you see the NCCE doing rather very little in educating Ghanaians on COVID, well, the boss, Josephine Nkrumah, says we're working hard to educate Ghanaians. That story is in the paper today in the center spread. President meets Council of State at Jubilee House. Traders call on assemblies to enforce safety protocols on COVID-19. Government donates to traditional councils in Accra. Finally, on the back page of the paper, National Blood Service begins donation exercise in Tema. And bury your dead within 1 month. Osajifo Amoitio for repaying issues that directive to dead relatives in his traditional area. Is an ultimatum to help decongest the morgues, which are fast filling up as families wait to bury their loved ones after the ban on public gatherings, which was imposed by the president. Should I continue with the next paper?
Yeah, you continue with the Crusading Guide.
All right, so here's the new Crusading Guide newspaper on the front page. President awaits, is it COVID advice? On timeliness for reopening of churches. Is the Council of State's advice on timeliness for reopening of churches and schools. COA FS fights FDA, insists products not contaminated. Now, that's a wrong move. When I saw that statement yesterday, the company issuing that statement, you don't fight the regulator the way that you seem to be doing it. It doesn't work like that. You can't take your own samples and test. By what parameters? How many of the samples did you test, representing what quantities making up what? I think you should chill. Pantai demolition arrests Sarah.
We clearly disagree.
Kojo, maybe we will talk about that. You have something to say on that, right?
Yeah, we'll talk in a bit.
Okay, yeah. 3.4 billion Kumewu DVLA office projects. We have been shortchanged, according to Kumewu citizens as well. And I was talking about the Pantine demolitions. Arrests Sarah Foko, landowners tells the IGP. John Kuma donates PPEs to frontline workers in Ejiso. So that's how the front page of the New Crusading Guide looks like. Over to you, gentlemen.
Oh, thank you. Who's going next? Is it me?
I think so. You're in the middle.
All right. So I'm doing the Ghanaian Times, the Daily Guide and the Insight.
Yes.
Okay, then. So Ghanaian Times, banner headline, no COVID-19 deaths in Ghana, President affirms. Also, government backs local face mask production. Osebonsu before court over forgery and fake NEIP beneficiaries list. Ooh, shocking. And FDA claim against COA FS untrue. COA, what does that say? Herbal Center. Yeah, so that's the Ghanaian Times front page. Let me tell you about the back page, where Vivo donates 6,500 PPE to support government's fight against coronavirus. Also, the former president gives 40 sets of PPE to Keta Municipal Hospital. And in the center, I've got a sideways shot of the center spread, so forgive me as I turn my head sideways to read it. No COVID-19 deaths in Ghana, President affirms. That's the story from the front page. But also, President swears in Dr. Okuboy as Deputy Minister of Health. That's congratulations to Dr. Okuboy on that. He's a friend of the show. We can't wait to have him come and answer some of our questions. Now, government backs local face mask production. That's also from the front page. FDA's claim is also there from the front page. So all the details of those front page stories available in the center. Let's do the Daily Guide real quick. Ex-tour boss bribe scandal unmasked, according to the Daily Guide's banner headline. Face masks guidelines coming. Confusion over food supplement. 6 fresh COVID-19 cases hit Ashanti. NDC two-faced in COVID-19 lockdown. This is the sort of thing that I was talking about in the message of motivation this morning. Anyway, let's flip the paper over. On the back this morning, Frank Achampong steps up training. GFA eyes expatriate technical director. COVID-19, Arsenal takes pay cut. Dog bites Man U players. Hey, how did that happen? And that does it for the Daily Guide. Let me end. Let's have a look at what's in the center. Nollywood actor praises Akufo-Addo for lifting lockdown. Sarkodie stuck in USA begs Akufo-Addo. Miss Ghana 2020 goes virtual. That'll be fascinating. They're going to do the whole contest online. No dividend payments, Bank of Ghana directs banks. U.S. oil prices fall back below zero. Shippers Authority assists Ridge and Tema hospitals. And instant pay use soar in first quarter. I think we all know why. The insight next. Ablakwa jabs Akufo-Addo, says president chose politics over science in lifting lockdown. Here we go again. Ghana advises EC against new register. And Solomon Owusu descends on EC. Also, Gabi says president's reckless on lockdown. Sorry, forgive me. Let me read that again. Gabi says president's decision on lockdown based on science, but security analyst disagrees. That does it for me.
Let me do the Daily Post. The Daily Post has on the front page, Mahama rescues Keta Hospital. Government delays in updating coronavirus figures, creating mistrust, according to the CDD. That's what the paper says. And Ghana drops 3 places on latest press freedom index. It has a picture of investigative journalists. The late Ahmed Swale. On the back page of the same paper, you'll find all the pictures, Mahama donating to the Keta Hospital. And all the pictures in real time as well. Yeah, so you get to find them on the back page of the Daily Post. Let's go to the last paper, the Business and Financial Times. They continue with their coronavirus-related economic stories, impact on the economy and business. It's well captured. Front page of the Business and Financial Times. Coronavirus erodes cities' gains. It tells you where we are currently, and despite all the gains made by the local currency against its major trading currencies, especially the US, the pandemic has washed all of it away, causing the city to lose its strength. Yeah. And then we also have same front page, our product is not contaminated. COA FS, they're dominating the front pages this morning. They are questioning the FDA's motive after an earlier approving drug for 2020, or after earlier approving the same drug for 2020. Now, the Ghana Export Promotion Authority, though, eyes export boost post-COVID-19, and online export education is expected to begin in the process. Indeed, there's a lot of education ongoing. We also do have a story about celebrate recovered patients, stigmatization is needed. Now let's go to the back page. It's the last section we're looking for, the Business and Financial Times. It says AFTA, and that is the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Must start July. Somebody who knows very well, also a lawyer as well, Ofosu Dorothy, stating that. That's a legal policy and transactions specialist, David Ofosu Dorothy. All right. Well, anything we want to take a look at? So many things to talk about. Dominating.
Story. And you know, I like what Mama B said at the beginning. that this is your regulator. So, give it a minute of thought before you determine how you want to respond to them. But their response in itself, I'm wondering what's going on there. I mean, so what they're telling us is that they have gone to do their own test. After the regulator tested the products, a certain batch of the products, and said that they are contaminated with E. coli, they then went to do their own tests at University of Cape Coast. And their tests say that the product is not contaminated. So based on that, customers should do what? Should they come and buy in spite of the FDA's recall? I wonder what they are seeking to achieve here. It seems more like a public relations stunt. They are trying the matter in the court of public opinion. So they want the public to believe that what they are being told may not necessarily be true. What they are being told by the regulator may not necessarily be true. That is really the whole point of going to test the product themselves. If really people were supposed to test products themselves and then come and inform the public whether it's safe or not, and then we all go and buy based on what they tell us, where would the safety be? But you see, they are feeding into conspiracy theories. There are some people theories. There are some people who believe that Coa FS is completely safe. So they are wondering how something that has already been approved by the FDA, now FDA is telling them that it's not safe. So they are feeding into that, uncertainty by going to do their own tests.
I think
but you also have to ask yourself, FDA, why would they lie? Like, what are they also trying to achieve if they are lying? You know?
We all have to give this a minute. Let's see what comes out, in the end. But we've run out of time, unfortunately. Can we do Major Online just for some 30 seconds, just to look at what's on the page? All right, so obviously this is what is dominating. Government projects 15,000 coronavirus deaths in Ghana, coming out of PM Express. Advice on health to the president, Dr. Nsia Sari, there, making lots of revelations and explaining the science behind the lifting of the lockdown. Lots of other stories on myjoyonline.com. Maybe another 30 seconds on the BBC. Patrick Gomez, our director. Okay, we're done. It looks like that's all we can do.
We have 30 seconds for BBC, he said.
Okay, yeah, so please go for it.
Yeah. So we have all the Africa Live updates, and this is South Africa unveils $26 billion COVID-19 relief package.
When you're big, you do big things. But there's also one of the other stories you find on the page. This one, South Africa's alcohol ban working, is a question because going along with the restrictions towards, halting the spread of coronavirus, they decided to ban alcohol. The whole intention: ban all booze, and you prevent drunken fights, reduce domestic violence, stop drunk driving, and eliminate, the whole weekend drinking. They've done that, almost halved it, 12,000, because they were recording like 34,000 who would have been in the hospitals. You can just go on these sites and read the stories for yourself. We'll have to bring you sport up next, unfortunately. That's all for the review.
Welcome to the sports segment here on the AM Show. My name is Benedict Osu. In our very first story this morning, the Professional Footballers Association of Ghana, that's PFAG, has stated their willingness to help clubs considering the pay cuts option. And they say that they will help every club that wants to do that. Well, Yusuf Chipsa is the General Secretary of the PFAG, and for him, they are willing to do that for the clubs.
To see how best it could be handled, because we know the salary cap in Ghana here. Some players are earning as low as 500 Ghana, 400 Ghana, 800,000 Ghana. So I think we need to treat this with all sorts of considering all sorts of factors, considering the fact that this COVID-19 has affected families and it extends to more financial responsibilities on the players. As it is assumed that every footballer is a rich person, we should also think that the players are going to have pressure from their extended family members who will be wanting help from them. So we really have to sit down to consider this thing very, very well before any club goes ahead to effect that pay cut on the salaries of the players. The players are very much aware, as you said. We are very much in touch with them. We are very, very close to the representatives, that is the captain. We have a platform where we, day in, day out, we interact with the captains from the various clubs, because they represent the players. But in war situations, or when the situation demands, we get in touch with individual players as well. Like I told you, we have a data of clubs that have not even paid a single TD to players in January. So in difficult times like this, we have to reach out to those players of that class to see how things are, how in which capacity, in which way we can help, stuff like that. So we have a very good relation with the players, and they are cooperating in order to make sure that their interests and their rights are not taken for granted.
So
stay under running soap, but be careful. Okay. And then please make sure that you use a hand sanitizer.
Okay. All right.
But more so, those who don't have, and you know that you are in a position to help them, keep helping them.
Okay.
Okay.
I will.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
But I want to say good morning to a very good friend of mine. And look, it's been some 23 years since we met. Good morning to you, Wisdom Nyako. You are the internal auditor for Ghana Education Service, Batawo District. Have a great time, and I wish you and the family good time this morning. But also practice all the guidelines as we are. But we also have to tell you about all the conversations we have. We'll go into detail on all the things that we need to discuss. Obi Amwa is a member of parliament for Kapim South, but also a deputy minister for local government and rural development. We are going to have a conversation with him on how post the lifting of the lockdown, we can ensure that all the guidelines and rules we want to adopt are being implemented at the metropolitan, municipal and district assembly levels. In the meantime, also we need to adequately get to the bottom of issues when it comes to the demographics and the statistics. You heard from Dr. Nsiasare, who advises the presidency on health, that estimatedly, we know we're looking at, if everything is equal, 15,000 deaths from all this. That is, if the modeling is right. But all this is in the absence of vaccines being not available, etc. You know, so we'll deal with all this morning, and we'll bring you the latest stories on AM Biz. Stay with us. We'll be right back. And talking about AM Biz, let's straight away go into it. It's brought to you by EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank. And this morning, we have a story, and it's about the Ministry of Health having submitted some 32 herbal drugs for testing to find a possible drug for coronavirus treatment at the Center for Plant Medicine Research. A Deputy Director for the Center, Dr. Alfred Ampoma Apia, says over 60 individuals have also sent in their samples. Currently, testing is ongoing at various stages, but the Ministry of Health is yet to make any financial inputs. Ghana spends less than 0.4% of its resources on research and development, and the WHO also adds that Nigeria currently has the highest investment in herbal research.
The U.S. stocks, which had been plummeting, actually received some revival on the 13th when some level of information on a possible vaccine was announced. So the industrial stocks and the medical stocks actually went up on the Dow Jones, and as much as 8% rise in those stocks. Fast track them, these issues to Ghana. One of the things that has been spoken about is the fact that our preparedness when it comes to medicine has been missing, and less than 0.5% of our resources are actually put into research. And here at the Center for Plant Medicine, virtually no amount of money has been coming here from the central government. I have come here to find answers as to what herbal drugs are being used, or the sort of research that has been going on when it comes to herbal drugs and possible solutions for COVID-19. So how do these rats come into the COVID-19 conversation?
Yes, let me start from this point. I think we are all aware of the fact that as we speak now, we don't have a medicine that kills the coronavirus, right? So what is being done globally is that we are doing what we call repurposing. Through WHO and other scientific organizations, certain drugs that are already in the system have been selected, which are known to have certain properties, antiviral properties, and which have prospects of being helpful. And those drugs are being used and they are monitoring its effectiveness. One of the drugs that have popped up is hydrochloroquine. I'm sure you might have. A few other drugs, yes, have been done. And similarly, if you take herbs, there are known herbs that have antiviral properties. And there are herbs that treat diseases like chickenpox, measles, shingles. And these are viral diseases. And there are herbs that treat these conditions. The implication is that these herbs have antiviral properties. And there are herbs that are being worked on scientifically with known antiviral properties, right? So what we are doing is to look at
the range.
Yes, a few of these, pick a few of them, and then retest. Look at what they can do so far as antiviral property is concerned. And
so
then,
are you introducing, for example, the COVID into these mice and then using these drugs? Exactly how then does it connect?
What we are interested in is a herb that have a potential to do something so far as COVID-19 is concerned. But we are not experimenting with that virus. With the coronavirus, this novel coronavirus, you need a specialized lab to do that kind of work. Currently, WHO will not allow us to do that one. But you can experiment with other viruses in collaboration with our collaborators to confirm the antiviral property of a particular herb or of a particular product. And that, in addition to information on the herb in literature, we can indicate that it is possible that this particular herb or product can be of use in this disease condition.
How many drugs have been brought by the Ministry of Health to you?
We received a total of 33 products from the Ministry of Health, and we understand it came to them through GAFTRA, Ghana Federation of Traditional Healers. So they brought a total of 33. But as at now, other individuals have also brought some, and we have way above the 33 that the Ministry of Health brought.
The Center for Plant Medicine says that, well, they stopped counting the number of people that throng into their center every single day, claiming to have some level of drugs to help cure the that's COVID-19, and they stopped the count at 60. And just as you have seen in my shot, these gentlemen from Koforidua have also come in with some solutions. But the need for scientific centers to be resourced in order to work with the speed that is needed for an emergency, this does not exist right here. And these are some of the critical things that we will need to get solutions for pandemics like this. Budgetary allocations that come from central government every year to the center.
Well, I don't have statistics now, but I will tell you that we don't get much from the central government. We don't get much. In fact, in terms of allocations, we don't get much. But what the central government has done is that for our IGF, they allow us to use 100%. So this is an area where we use our own resources to do some of the things that we've done here. You'll be surprised if we show you some of the things that we've done through our own resources. And to be very honest, over the years, we've not been receiving the funding from the government, but we have indicated to them, they are aware of it, they understand it, and this is not the occasion for us to go into details, but then they understand what our needs are.
I like to have some level of details because even processing these 20 drugs, I'm sure, have you been giving any resources to be able to do this work in a fast-tracked process for which you have been talking about?
We've submitted a concept note, and that is under consideration.
When you say a concept note, exactly what does that look like financially?
What it means is that you give me an assignment, and I tell you how we will do it, and I tell you what we need to do. You know, good things are not cheap, and cheap things are not good. So that's the way it is. Yes.
The WHO has indicated that Africa has consistently not spent money in its research to come up with different solutions for different problems, and for us as a continent, I think that has been really evidential in COVID. We would want to beat the time and probably make some of the biggest announcements internationally, but working at 0.73% of the contribution, and even in Ghana, research contribution is less than 0.4%. What would you say, or how would you want to push government to be more interested in putting away resources for research centers like yours?
Yes, what I would like to say is this. It's true. Over the years, African governments don't see the need to spend a lot of money in research. And you see that even when you go to the universities, when there's industrial action by the lecturers, it will be about research allowance and whatever. You are aware. So we have to spend a lot of money in this area. And that is where African governments are not spending money. Sometimes people don't see the need for research. They think everything is okay, but there's a need to continually upgrade systems, because we need in the modern world where technology is the order of the day. So we need to do that. And I'd like to tell you that the present pandemic has exposed the inadequacies in all our systems, including healthcare, in terms of research in all other areas. And I'm very sure that the government is looking at that seriously. Because you see, what we have here, we are doing our best. You can't give what you don't have. So if you bring us something to do and we don't have the capabilities, it's not going to happen.
Okay.
I hope you understand.
So with the concept note that you have given to the Ministry of Health, have they responded? Have you started work?
What I would like to tell you is that, yes, we've been engaging them. We have been engaging them, and it's been positive. Sure.
What do you mean by positive? Because we'd like to know if you started work on these over 20 drugs.
What I've said is that, of course, work has started on it, because when they are brought, we have to look at the stage in which they are, the research that needs to be done. For instance, there are some of them that have been approved by the FDA already. We need background information. We need to find out if those drugs were tested by us. We have information on it. And don't forget that these drugs that are coming in, they are looking for collaboration. And before we will agree to collaborate, we have to do background information. We have to do our research just as you did. So the work, that is how it is. So it's not just a matter of not doing background preparation. That is work. It involves a lot. You have to read. You have to get information out of it. Then you know how you go about it. That's the way it is. So yes, we started doing the work.
You were telling us how you use your own internally generated resources to fund the center, other than the addition which is supposed to come from government. Exactly how would you be able to do that at this rate of a pandemic? For example, in China, when they got SARS before COVID-19, the herbal drugs were actually one of the miracles that actually saved them from SARS after killing about 100 million people. I want to find out from you, your internally generated funds, exactly how can this solve big issues like this as a problem?
Our internally generated fund, the fund is not adequate to address big issues. It's okay for us to look at our daily operations, to make sure that we stay in business, to make sure that we stay competitive. But staying above the crowd needs a lot, and that is what we're talking about. Because, for instance, now, I mean, the speed in which we expect to be doing things. Don't forget that now we have a lot of medication, people bringing things in. When they come to you and they tell you that they have this medication for and the COVID-19, you don't drive them away. And everybody is coming. We have to do that. And the speed, the resources in which we are able to do also affects it. For instance, if we go to our lab, we have lab animals that we do. So when we are conducting some studies, we cannot speed up certain things. Some of them we have to take 2 weeks, 1 month, and it has to be done. You can't short-change it. And if another one comes, we have to wait. And some of the ones that we have, some do other things. I don't think I'm prepared to talk about all the challenges that we have, but I just gave you an example of some of these things that happen. So you should understand the fact that when you have a challenge, you go to your ministry. Sometimes people use the media to talk about these things, but we just give you an idea so that you understand what is going on.
Usual feature that you find here at Kaneshie Market, the traffic on that particular stretch is back with a lot of people going about their normal duties. Now, before we got to the Kaneshie Market, we were at the Malam Market where market women were observing, social distancing. At the Kaneshie Market at the bus terminal, we've been here for the past 30 minutes just observing. Out of 10 people you find, just 2 of them, will be in masks.
But you use sanitizer, no, and social distancing, so yeah.
Well, I'm asking her what they're doing to protect themselves here. at this market against coronavirus. She says they've been adhering to the social distancing protocol, and they have been also using sanitizers. So this is here for the market women. So they can actually come here and come and wash their hands anytime they feel that, anytime they deem necessary, they can just come here to come and wash their hands. This is here at the Kaneshie market. This is beautiful. This is encouraging. It has to be commended. But I heard another woman complaining here. Let me find out from her what she was talking about.
3 days in 5 days.
Well, just when we're commending the initiative here for the market woman, this woman here is complaining that there is no water in that system. She says sometimes it can run dry for like about 5 days. There's no water for them to wash their hands.
All right, so we kind of started the conversation already here. That's the Kaneshie market. Maxwell visited the lorry park yesterday, and this time around inside the market itself. Let's check out the situation at the Medina market. Remember, even before the lockdown, during the period of the lockdown, that particular market was shut down, reopened, and shut again. Now that the restrictions have been lifted, the restrictions on movement, how does it look like? Komla Adom, my colleague, visited the Medina market. Here's what he found out.
After staying at home for more than a week, traders at the fresh produce hub of the market are picking up from where they left off. Only that they are more conscious than they used to be before. A 43-year-old vegetable vendor who loves to be called Laje One has taken personal responsibility by acquiring a Veronica bucket, water and soap at her stand. She washes her hands every now and then.
Immediately after I serve my clients, I wash my hands and use the sanitizers. There was a bucket at the entrance. I don't see it there anymore.
She appears to be the only one in this part of the market who has taken the initiative to also allow her clients to wash their hands after purchase.
I allow my customers to wash their hands also after purchase. It attracts the customers to come to my stand.
Others want municipal authorities to provide Veronica buckets and sanitary equipment at the entrance of the market for easy hand washing.
When we go to other markets, we see the Veronica buckets there. Over here, we haven't seen any. We urge them to bring us some.
In the yard, which used to be crowded with retailers out to purchase the freshest vegetables and foodstuff every day, the traders are practicing some level of social distancing.
We've kept a considerate distance. Also, we use the sanitizers after selling.
Municipal authorities have told them a shift arrangement will soon be instituted to allow adequate spacing. These traders welcome the move.
We
have been told a shift system will be implemented. Some would come for 3 days, others would come to the market on the other days. We welcome this move. It will prevent crowding. It is for our own good.
At the end of the day,
There is, however, some clarity needed considering the perishable nature of their wares.
This shift system arrangement will be problematic because we all sell fresh vegetables on this lane. The okra, for instance, are harvested every day. They will perish, so they should come clear.
On the fringes of a market, however, vehicles and humans compete for space. It is almost a beastly scramble. These traders on the shoulders of the road have been blamed for disregarding market rules to remain here. Security officials had to chase them out last week, as this trader tells me.
Because of the COVID-19, the security officials chased us away with canes. But since the lockdown has been lifted, we are back on the road.
But with life getting back to normal after the lifting of restrictions on movements, they are back where they do business, like they never left. They will continue to battle for space with vehicles, and as for hygiene precautions in the face of a coronavirus pandemic, you'll have to be here to see for yourself. Komla Adom, Joy News, Medina Market.
Limiting face-to-face contact with others is the best way to reduce the spread of COVID-19. Social distancing helps limit contact with infected people and contaminated surfaces. The rule, 1 meter at least, and if you want to stretch it, well, 2 meters distance between yourself and anyone who is coughing or sneezing. And if the person happens to have COVID-19, then it means that your chances of getting it will be really, really low. But as you saw there, that's not something that can be practiced in the market, or can it? As the lockdown was lifted, we've seen MMDAs now trying to re-strategize because, as you know, it was only lifted Sunday nights. So how are they trying to do it? Is it working? I've tried to monitor some of them, and the job looks really, really difficult. We have in the studio this morning a deputy local government minister who is also member of parliament, Ekapim South. Mr. Obiamwa will help us with what the MMDAs are doing to help fight the spread of coronavirus, seen as our markets. This is how we do business. Yesterday in Kaswa, well, those who witnessed it say it was business as usual, even if not worse, because it was a market day. So, Honorable Obiamwa, good morning to you. Thank you for coming into the studio at a time like this.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me here.
Great.
I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you all right. Hopefully my viewers can, and I know they can.
Thank you.
So let's talk about what we've seen, because we brought pictures from the Kaneshie market and the Medina market as well. From where you sit at the ministry, have you observed what we've seen?
Well, thank you so much. Good morning to viewers and to you. I think, first of all, we must commend the media for highlighting what is happening in our markets. If we all recall, when the president said that restrictions had been imposed on gatherings, it was for conferences, workshops, funerals, churches, attendance, the mosque, all those things. But for whatever reason, because when it comes to markets, that's where we go for food, they were not part of the restriction. But we were all supposed to assist in observing the protocols. So right from beginning, we at the ministry made all MMDCs aware that special attention and focus should be on the markets, because there were no churches for us to bother ourselves so much, except that some still wanted to organize churches where these churches were broken up by the security services, etc. But the major issue was how to manage the markets, because that's where people were then congregating. There were no football matches, nothing for you to say that people had congregated. So for the markets, it became a special project for us. That's how come right from the beginning, we started talking about disinfection. We had to close down the markets for a day or two across the nation for this disinfection to take place. That's one aspect. Before then, we had even embarked on education, awareness, and sensitization, to the extent that right from the beginning we thought of the Veronica buckets, thought of sanitizers, thought of meeting the market leaders to let them appreciate that things were no more normal and that they would have to adjust to some of these situations. So for us, every MMDC was mandated to ensure that things were managed in the markets. So before lockdown, we had started. During lockdown, of course, we wouldn't have so many people entering the markets. Even that, some markets had to be closed down. They had to agree on alternative arrangements. They had to agree on alternative dates and even alternative markets. So that you found some areas where they will look for open spaces to ask that some of the market people should move there with their wares and tables, and then make sure that they practice the social distancing. So all those things have been in place, and every day we monitor, every day we get reports. Where things are not looking so good, we draw the attention to it, and then find out how we could assist. Where they were overwhelmed, they thought the best decision was to even get the markets closed, from some 3 days, some 5 days, for all of them to come to a certain understanding that indeed this is how we should go if we have to protect ourselves. Now, since the lifting of the lockdown, the situation has exacerbated in the sense that you're not talking only about those who operate in the market. You're talking about those who also move into the market. Because with the stay-at-home lockdown situation, fewer people were going to the markets. Now with the lifting, you have more people going there. So we still have to carry on with what we are doing, except that we should probably think of even alternative arrangements, as I said. And then probably recommend at the appropriate time maybe stringent laws. As we speak, it's more protocols, wear your mask, social distancing, sanitizing, wash your hands, those things. It's more or less advice as to how to play safe. But as things get tighter, we may also have to tighten the rules. Even though at the assembly level, you say that bylaws can be imposed on some of these things. But probably if a bigger force like EI comes in, then they know that this is what the law says, this is how we should implement it. But as of now, it's more of engagement as to the best arrangement to let things work as far as markets are concerned.
Okay, so when would we begin to see the changes in the market in terms of the spacing out and the fewer numbers selling? I don't know what works, because I'm not sure shift will work for every market. They will have to come up with their own different ways of doing it. But when would we begin to see? Because at least we didn't see that yesterday.
Well, I don't know how many places you covered, but even if you listen to afternoon radio, for a place like Tema, they had even closed it down. They said this morning they were meeting to carry on with arrangements so that they can operate. As I said, even before and during lockdown, these arrangements were in place. If you look at a place like Takrady, they had gone for an open space and marked those places and then asked the market people to operate from that side.
But if you look at a place like Medina, and if you look at the Kaswa situation as well, then it's going to be harder for them to do, or I don't know, is it hard for them to do what Takrady is doing, for instance, or what Tema is also beginning to do?
Some have the opportunity to look at other arrangements. For instance, Ashaiman has about 9 places where they have identified as alternative markets, so that they will decongest the main markets. And they insist that some of the people should go there so that we can apply social distancing and then make things easier. So some places have a list of alternative places, even though it doesn't take overnight to convince everybody to move there.
Yeah, the only problem is the virus is not waiting for us.
Certainly, and unfortunately, we cannot do everything overnight. It hasn't been overnight in the sense that during all these periods, these arrangements have been going on. It's when they think that people still don't want to comply, or they insist on doing the wrong things, as it were, that they decide that then nothing should go on at all. But it can't be forever, because you need to go to the market and find that you can buy things. Unfortunately, our system here is not supermarkets. Our system here, we have our local traditional markets. And once you move to those places, they are not as regulated as other places. If you move to shopping mall or places, it's more regulated. But for the markets, these are some of the challenges we have. And I'm saying that daily briefing and reports indicate that the MMDCs are always finding alternative markets and arrangements to let us find a way of complying with these things. Except that, as I said, there are some places you can't have them move anywhere. That is where you bring in the other solutions. How do we get you to agree that you should even come on alternative days?
That's when you talk about the law. Is that when you talk about the law, or this is still something that can be done? Talking to the
This is something that the leaders appear to agree, except that there are still bottlenecks. For instance, you can't say all those who sell onions should not come on a particular day. Those going to market will say that on this day we went to market, we didn't get onions. So the following day, it will then mean that people should be going to market every day, because it's not every item that they will get on that day. So that arrangement needs to be fine-tuned. Fine-tuning means that half of onion sellers should come and half should not come. And then some are complaining, like the okra seller, saying that even if you do that arrangement, my colleague will come and my items are perishable. So how do I also stay home for the items to be perishable? What then is the alternative? Is it for you to have better storage so that if you don't turn up on a particular day or two, you can still have your goods intact to be able to sell on the day that you are supposed to appear there? All those things are things that we've been discussing for a long time, and as the challenges come, we also see how we push it. But there are some that I believe that we may have to, like wearing masks. We have to impose restrictions or pass a law which will demand that everybody entering the market, everybody operating in the market should wear a mask. And if you enter, you don't wear a mask, we give you one free of charge, or do you purchase it before you enter the market? These are things that can be implemented even if we have to pass a law to implement it. If you don't come to the market, you don't wear a mask, you are turned away. That one is for our own safety, it's for the general safety, not only your safety. Those things can be put in place. The others are the business side of it, where don't come today, let somebody else come. And the person who doesn't come thinks that he's losing business. Those are the issues that we should look at. As for washing hands and the protocols, it's a must. At the point, it has to be imposed on them.
So which ones are we going for? Which ones are we going for? So if are we saying specific markets? So Medina, what will work in Medina won't work in Malamata?
Yes.
Or Makola, for instance?
As I said, some areas have come to certain arrangements, move to other places. That makes you then have alternative markets, so that there will be social distancing and there will be space. Some places to look at alternative arrangements. The challenge is, for how long would they agree to have such situations? Like, come this day, don't come this day. It's an emergency situation, it's not a normal situation. So we put all the arrangements in place. Some have moved very far in those arrangements. Others too are still grappling with some challenges, like how do I preserve my goods? How do I ensure that I don't lose business because of this arrangement? All these things will have to work out. At a point, even if you have to provide storage facilities for people, you may have to think of it, except that it's extensive and expensive.
Okay, I'll come back and ask you about timelines. But I want to also engage the president of the Greater Accra Markets Association, Auntie Mercy Na Afroa Dijan. Yes. Auntie Mercy, good morning to you. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, and good morning to all your August listeners.
Okay, great. So, Auntie Mercy, you're back into the market. It started on Monday. How is it going?
By the grace of God, we are back into the market with all its problems.
But it looks like from the I haven't been to Makola, but from some of the markets that I have visited, it looks like we suddenly forgot that there are some protocols to follow. We are back and it's like business as usual. So what is happening where you are? What have you observed?
In fact, it's a very big problem, because I thought because of the education we have given them, the arrangements for the Veronica bucket, the washing soap and so on, at least they will go to the present life, because the time we are in is not normal. It's not normal time. But it's rather unfortunate. They have forgotten everything. They feel they have been in the house for some time. They have lost money. They have lost. So immediately they entered into the business with him, which is very, very wrong and very scary. So this is the time we have to hammer on the education. Wash your hands, cover your mouth and nose, use sanitizers. We have to, it should be a constant education. And that's what we have started doing again.
Okay.
Because what they should know is now our destiny is in our hands. If you want to live, do the correction. If you want to die, then you can do what you like. But most unfortunate thing is with this sort of this virus, you can't die alone. If even you want to die, you'll be going with a lot of people, because people will be greeting you, touching you, doing this and that. So
Auntie Mercy, I also wanted us to look at the social distancing. That's something that we hear market women and men talk very little about. So what's the plan to social distance, the 1 meter at least, from one seller to the other?
Okay, I think that's the most important aspect of the whole thing. Because if they are able to follow the restrictions of washing hands and so on, already their spaces have been demarcated. You can't tell somebody leave your space for the other. So what we decided is the placing of some of the people to other places. And I think some of the assemblies have started. Tommy started, sent some to Abokobi and others to Taifa. And it is working. I think AMA has also started by removing the tomatoes, bulk tomato goods, and those are the railways to Haspa. And I think they should, at least they should think of their health and the health of their family members and other customers to do as such. We also plead with the customers, please don't gather at one place. Your health is at risk. So they should also try as much as possible to participate.
Auntie Mercy, where exactly are you? I mean, where do you do your business?
I'm a shoe seller at Mokola.
Okay, so explain the changes at your place, your area.
Madam, when you are coming to Mokola, you have to pass through either Tudu or the fire service this road. And immediately they said it is open, all stores are open, or everybody is just busy doing business. But the problem is, if we don't find a way to separate, because as I'm saying, you can't start somebody, say, number one, sit down, number two, go. So I think with the security forces, we have forced those outside and the crowded area to another place.
So, Auntie Mercy, because I know where you are describing very well, it means that people are back selling in front of the shops.
Everything has gone to old days, normal. Which is where the fear is. Because other than that, if we are not able to move them, and one thing I'm saying is, immediately they get out of the market into the streets, they feel they are not under the market. So it's very difficult for you to give them instruction for them to obey.
Okay. So you need the security people back to enforce this.
We need the security people, the assembly. They have their task forces. The market too, we have task forces. If they join hands with us, we'll be able to send them to where they are. At least that area, when they were about to build the shopping mall at Mokola, the market women were sent there just beside lotteries, and they have packed. So it's not new. That what I'm saying is, we market traders should think of our health and the health of our family and Ghanaians, and move to wherever we are asked to move to. It is temporary. We are just praying this thing will get off so that we come to our normal life. So whatever is happening, we have been telling them is temporary. Wherever they send you, please try to go. Because all the aim and the agenda of the authorities is to make a safe and make our trading safe. So we shouldn't be grumbling. It's better for you to go to a place and get your health than being in the crowded place, get the money and die.
True. Auntie Mercy, I have a deputy minister in the studio, so I'm going to pass some of your concerns and the suggestions to him. In fact, he's been listening. So I want to say thank you for your time. Auntie Mercy is president of the Greater Accra Markets Association. Okay, no, Auntie Mercy, you're still on the line, right? Hello, Auntie Mercy.
Yes.
Auntie Mercy, please don't go yet. Honorable Obiamwa, there's something that you thought I should ask her.
I was saying that the imposition of certain laws and restrictions, whether that she thinks that should also be the way out.
Okay. Auntie Mercy.
Yes.
So the Honorable Minister is asking your opinion on whether or not we need some further laws and restrictions to help with the situation as we are facing it where you are.
Thank you very much. I think with this outside trading, a lot of laws have been made, and they are still being made. But the next issue is the enforcement. So if the laws there are enforced and the people are educated on the issue of their health, I think, I'm scared. I'm really scared if I see what is happening outside now.
Work?
Hello?
Hello, Auntie Mercy.
Yes.
Is it more laws, or you are thinking enforcement, enforce what we already have?
Yes, because already they said we shouldn't sell outside the market. The bylaw is there if it is enforced, and the people know that those who have places in the market can enter. Because if you go to the market, Mokola now, there are a lot of places that are empty. The people are outside. So if those outside can enter the market and make themselves comfortable because if people are not outside, the customers will come into the market to do their trading.
True. Okay. All right. Auntie Mercy, thank you so much for your time. Honorable Obiamwa, I mean, it's just very simple. Enforce the bylaws that you already have. So, for instance, clear all the people who have come out in the streets.
Well, thank you, but it's not as simple as that. You clear them, they go into the markets. They are still supposed to observe the protocols. It's not just pushing them back into the market, and then when they get to the market, you don't think about social distancing, or you don't say that you should have your masks in place or obey the other protocols. It's true that we need to enforce that aspect where people are not authorized to trade and they are trading. We should ensure that they don't do it. But you're supposed to find spaces for them. She's saying that there's enough space in the market. That really is not the issue. The main issue is the spacing. Space means that you can still have a place to go and do your business. But how close are you to the next person? That is where we are talking about alternative markets. And she mentioned it. It's happened before that they had to use other places when they were building the Makola shopping mall. It's for us to all understand what we are in and for us to appreciate that this is for our own safety. Sometimes you hear them complaining as if we are being targeted or we are being too rigid on them or it will end up affecting their business. But that's why I'm saying that we need to still continue educating and creating the awareness. But beyond a certain point, we would have to bring in the enforcement and the laws to ensure that we are all safe. We cannot continue talking about this forever without insisting that, no, you can't do it this way. We've talked about it enough. We've engaged your leaders have engaged you, and you are bold enough to even speak to the camera and say that I couldn't be bothered. That cannot go on. Because if you say that nobody should play football at the stadium, and we are complying with it, nobody should go to the stadium to go and watch a match, because if there are no matches, we are complying. Nobody should go to church, we are complying. Private funerals and burials, not more than 25, as much as possible, we are complying. So if you're selling food and you think, in your case, the rules should be relaxed because you are selling food, then you are the one endangering all of us. And it cannot go on forever.
So should we, because yesterday I engaged the acting dean of the local government studies who said, you know, clearly there are people who know what the right things are, but they insist on doing the wrong things. We need to be punishing. I mean, we've seen, for instance, those who breached the lockdown rules taken to court and fined. And if you can't pay, you go to jail.
Yes, sanctioning people, including preventing you from coming back to the place where you're doing business. So, yes, because if you don't allow you to come there to come and do business, then you know the implications of not complying with what you're supposed to.
But so what's the ministry's role? Because the assembly is there, so we can't just jump straight to the ministry.
So the ministry's role is to direct the assemblies, to monitor what they are doing, supervise them, and ensure that they implement what the law requires and what the law has mandated them to do. Ours is to direct and monitor and supervise them, and then engage them and bring in new aspects if we think this is the way to go.
Okay.
So they report to us every day. There's a platform, there's a monitoring team every day across the country. Even those who were not under lockdown, they were reporting to us every day because the protocols and everything were not for only the 47 assemblies which were locked down. All the 260. So if Techiman is not part of lockdown, we are still monitoring what's happening in Techiman. How are you ensuring that the protocols
So is the task too big for them? Is this something they can do? Because I listened to the MC who oversees the Kaswa market, for instance, yesterday on the Kusi saying,
yes.
And I'm sure we're both listening to the same program. The description of what was happening there yesterday, particularly even as it was a market day, it looked too big for the assembly alone to handle.
They looked, or they sounded overwhelmed. Overwhelmed in the sense that they deal with influx of people, even from outside their district. And once it's market day or a hectic day, they think that probably even the place is too small for such activity. And then in controlling and managing it, it becomes more difficult. Such peculiar situations, we need to sit back and look at it. Do you then say that you stop market days? Do you say that you stop people from moving into the market on particular days so that the place doesn't become so overcrowded that it becomes dangerous for everybody? All those things we've discussed and discussed them. When they were under lockdown, they seemed to be able to manage it. Before lockdown, we had even put in place arrangements and protocols, but as of yesterday, he sounded quite overwhelmed, and it's a typical place that we need to look at. If you go to Techiman, they seem to have very peculiar problems, and we are addressing them.
Malamata and the visuals, I think this is Malamata. Malamata is relatively calm. I mean, it's not crowded, especially if they all decide to. And I think largely they are all within the market itself. So it make it really easier, even if you're visiting and you're going to buy foodstuffs. I don't know if there's a certain model that all the markets can emulate. Is there a standard?
Of course, there is a standard. The ideal standard is to have a modern market where people stay in their shops and their stores, and it's easy to manage them. The next step is where they are in open places. The major thing is about safety and decongesting. Because of the situation, we have to decongest. And decongesting means that you move to other places so that people come into the market to know that the yam sellers are now here. So I need to go there instead of coming straight here. And if you move all yam sellers to a particular place, and there's enough space for them to do their business, then you'll be addressing the situation. And that's why I'm saying that for some places, they have enough space to be able to engage in this. They have alternative markets lined up. The rest is to insist that move to that market, because that's where you have to do business, and that's where we have our safety.
Okay, so are there I asked about timelines. We see that you're engaging with your men on the ground, your men and women on the ground. But in times like these, we know, yes, the notice just came on Sunday nights.
No,
but this is Wednesday.
As I said before, then they were doing it. If I show you the reports, it's not only after they left.
But it looks like we've retrogressed in some instances.
Simply because for 3 weeks we were under a certain restriction, and then when the restriction has been lifted, others have the impression that some will even say that probably after a week or two the restrictions will be imposed again. So they go back like just the day before the lockdown. You saw the situation in Accra. It was so chaotic, and those who even wanted to move out of Accra, they were so much in a hurry so everything appeared a bit chaotic. Since the lifting, there appears to be some places where people are still moving and rushing. You're trying to calm things down. People should stay calm. I'm sure that within a few days, all these things would also be addressed. There will still be pockets of areas where we have challenges. The peculiar areas of challenge, we should be able to move in and address as we go on. If you listen to a lot of the MMDCs, they are doing very well. They are on top of their job.
I think Tema is commendable. You talked about that, because I had the MCA as well. He seemed to have things under control there. Just finally, one thing that I thought I should bounce off you. I read this article by Benjamin Chum on effects of COVID-19 on MMDA's IGF, and that's published on adumonline.com. So he talks about a major reduction in the IGFs leading to huge financial burden on the assemblies. Yeah. Is that something that has been talked about at your level?
Certainly, it's not only about the assemblies, it's all businesses. And for the assemblies, the peculiar situation is they have to collect fees and rates from those who do business to be able to also generate some revenue. So if you close all bars and restaurants, obviously that affects revenue. The areas where they can make money, if those areas are not operating or they've gone very down, it creates problems for them. Even burial permits, etc., bring in money. And where people are not burying, a lot of people are still keeping their loved ones in the mortuaries. They affect them. And when it happens that way, they have employees who are paid through IGF. If they are not making that money, then they may have to also reduce the number of people that they have employed. So obviously the assemblies have challenges. For us, even we have what we call the District Development Fund, DDF, where we sit down with the donors bring in some money, government provides counterpart funding. For now, they have projects that they are supposed to carry out with the DDF. We've agreed that a certain percentage should be used for COVID-19 projects, so that at least it also helps in mitigating some of these things. But at the end of the day, once revenue is low, it also affects what they are able to do in the assemblies and even employment and other things.
Well, this is hard for all of us, also very hard for the assemblies, because now we're not looking at the national strategy. Look at us talking about the assemblies. We're zeroing it down to the ground, and they don't have as much as well. Their means of generating funds, not all the market. So in some of the market, we see they're crowded, but in other places, not all the market women and men are even going to the market. So collecting the revenues that they also take in the market, that will also be a problem. And then, of course, we know some of their planned programs have also been cancelled. So the effect is being felt everywhere. But hopefully we'll be able to manage the situation. Honorable Obiamwa, I thank you for coming into the studio.
Thank you
but
so
your
much.
Constituency, because, you know, just adjourning, cases have been recorded in terms of COVID-19. Ekuapem South, everything is okay?
When you said my constituency, the reality is that we've had reports of suspected cases. Let's say Ekuapem South. But so far, those suspected cases have tended to be negative. And then there were those two who were supposed to be traced, either coming from abroad or having contacts. Those traces were done and they've turned negative. But it doesn't mean that it can be negative forever. Because for the adjoining constituency, Ekuapem North, 2 have turned positive. And we even understand for Nsawam Adwaji, 1 person has proven positive. So we need to observe all these things, but you cannot guarantee that you may not end up with a few of these cases turning positive. But the most critical thing is the education, is the awareness and the prevention and all the things that we can do to stay safe, stay at home, stay calm, and then work so hard that at least the devastation around the world, ours will be minimized. But it all depends on us. All depends on us. If sometimes you see, especially the young ones, you see that for when you are young, they say the immortality of youth. When you are young, you think death is nowhere near you. So some are not too meticulous and compliant with what we are supposed to do. And it's even come out that for the males, they are more recalcitrant than the females. Females are more compliant. They wash your hands, protect yourself, do this. But for the guys, they still think that they are nowhere near death, and they sometimes take risks that then come to affect all of us. And one thing that I think has saved us is the closing down of the educational institutions. I mean, whatever it is, I think it was a major decision, a masterstroke that has really saved us.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Honorable, thank you very much for coming into the studio and taking time off and answering the questions as well. Stay with us. We have lots of conversation. There's the minister's press briefing this morning as well. Two things they've tabled. One is updates in case counts and management, and also Ghana's testing capacity explained. That's all coming up later this morning. We'll bring you all these conversations. So stay right here with us. Roland Walker comes up next.
And what we've been doing right, just like that interaction you saw between Bamavi Osuabwaje and the Deputy Minister for Local Government and Rural Development, Obi Amwa, is to put matters into perspective. And so while we look at market, the way we're enforcing the regulations or what the guidelines should be and their implications on public health, we also need to look at the wider implications of many of the projections that we have. And we know that what has been dominating the discussion platforms have been that revelation, and because of that interaction that Evans Mensah had on PM Express with the Presidential Advisor on Health, Dr. Nsia Sarri, on what we expect the projection should be by way of the fatalities or which section of the population could be affected. And what a way for us to do that discussion. So we have a regular on the show, somebody who is very integral in monitoring all this, Professor Alfred Yorson. And he teaches very premier school. We have University of Ghana Medical School, who also provides surveillance support for the Ghana Health Service. And good morning to you, Prof. Yorson. Okay, great. So we'll keep you on there, and we want you also to have a listen or a watch on that insert by Dr. Nsia Sarri. We'll play that, and then we'll come also interpret a finding or a survey that has been provided, if not published, by the Ghana Health Service as well. But Dr. Nsia Sarri first.
We have 30 million population here. We expect that about 10% of the population may be infected. And out of the 10% of the population...
So is that our projection?
Yes, we have that projection. Okay. Out of the 10%...
So no, I'm just yes. hoping that this is not this is what we projected.
It's not hypothesis, that's what...
So Ghana is projecting that 10% of the 30 million population will be infected.
I'm coming. 10% may become positive, but out of the 10%, 80% of them may not show any signs and symptoms at all.
So that is our projection.
And 5% of them will be very ill.
Okay.
That's the projection. So
let me break it down. This is
that's
important.
The reason why
I'm just hearing this for the first time, so it's important just to break it down.
Yes.
Our projection, our modeling says we expect 10% of the population should be infected, positive. 80% of them will not be critical.
Yes, that's the projection.
5% will get critical.
Yes.
How many do you expect to die?
If you look at it, I think about 5%, the 5% who get critical, about 10% of them will die. That's how it is. That's how the modeling is.
Sorry,
that's how the modeling is.
Okay.
So, but because what we have seen in Ghana, and for that matter in Africa, that this modeling doesn't maybe will not even be the case in Africa, because we are not seeing critical cases. And I've given you the reason, and if you look at the cases that you are seeing, the number of people who are in critical condition is very, very small.
Yeah.
Even out of the 1,042 that you had, or those who have symptoms of 380, 4 of them, sometimes 2, 9 of them, unfortunately, have lost their lives. So it means we have a situation where this hypothesis may not be the case in Ghana.
But we are
preparing for this.
Okay.
And to do all this also, we need to also put matters into perspective, because there's been a survey on all this, the case count, and what their own conjecture and also extrapolations of the Ghana Health Service have been. And this also will add a lot to the conversation, and myself and Kojo Yankson will do that. But that will be on the screens for you, and then you'll get to know. And it states clearly in terms of what the graphics, which is representing that survey or the report by the Ghana Health Service, indicating that it presents a review of the available numbers of COVID-19 and its premise on experiences from other countries, and also makes all these extrapolations. Now, the observations include that the decision to embrace testing was critical in curbing the fight against the pandemic, which also has been emphasized within all the communications so far. And this was also at the global and Africa levels. The cases of infection, the recoveries and the fatalities are set to be what they are. The death to test cases in Africa is the only correlation coefficient that is not statistically significant. Now, according to this, it presents a warning signal to African countries that are not testing. So Ghana has been testing, but now new revelations are indicating that we're testing, but we have to question the cases or the people who have been tested, because is it up to 68,000? It's a question that also we've had some responses to, that we need better clarification. And it continues based on the observations that while recovery to infection rates are comparable for the global and Africa cases, the evidence from Ghana is worrying. And the worry says that proportion of recovery to infection is less than 50% relative to global and Africa evidence. So on the African continent and the global stage, they have at least close to 50%, and ours is just less than 50%. Okay, so it's where we bring Professor Yosi in. Kojo, I would want you to take the first bite and ask the first question as it is. And Professor Yosi, Kojo Yankson also on stream.
Kojo. Yeah, hello, Prof. It's good to speak to you. We've been having a look at the numbers, and one thing is quite clear. Ghana has made the right decision in doing the aggressive testing. It is making sure that we have more data than many of our neighbors in Africa. But at the same time, in the grand scheme of things, compared to the rest of the world, our tests are giving us data that raise some questions. For example, at the moment, out of all the tests that we've done, the 68,000 tests that we've done, only 1,042 positives have been found. That's just about 1.5%. But around the world, it's around between 6 and 11%. That we are finding. So what is accounting for this big difference? Is it that we haven't tested enough people?
All right, thank you very much, Kojo. Yes, we need to put it in context. The yield of the test or the positive cases that you will get clearly depends on the stage of the epidemic in the particular setting. We all know that we put in some measures quite early. We started as soon as we saw the first case entering into the country, we put in measures. And therefore, the time that we started case tracing, monitoring, and testing, the stage of the epidemic, as it were, is not or was not the same as it was in Europe and other places. So that's one thing I would say, probably, is because of the stage of the epidemic and at the time that we started. We see one case, we do all the contacts, and you can trace as many as about 40, 50 persons supposedly to have come into contact with one case. Certainly, you are not going to get a lot of positive cases. Had you waited much longer without identifying the first case, then a lot more people would have gotten infected. Then when you go looking for people to test, your positivity rate will be relatively higher than if you had started much earlier, which is precisely what we have tried to do.
Right, that makes sense. But what does that mean for the future? Based on the fact that we've lifted the lockdown at a time when we have quite a big spike in our numbers. We went from 800 and something to 1,042 within something like 48 hours. And then we lifted the ban. And the reality is that that spike, those last 100 and something cases, if you consider the fact that they are all people who would have been infected within maybe 2 weeks, because we know the incubation period is 2 weeks. So all these people were infected during the lockdown. Now we've lifted the lockdown. Can we expect the numbers to spike even further?
Yes, in terms of disease behavior and characteristics, if you relax or you relent on the efforts that you put in place, certainly that's likely to happen. However, what it is that we are continuing on a lot of the preventive measures that have been put in place. Granted, the lockdown has been lifted, but we are still encouraging as many people as possible to stay home if you have no business doing outside. And also encouraging the use of the wearing of masks, which is key. And this, we believe, the local authorities and the traditional authorities in our local communities should support it, that people should wear masks. It's been seen and known to be protective. And therefore, if we continue to put all these measures in place, we are still continuing to fight. And the projections there indicate to us that we are not out of the woods. The test positivity rate may be low, but that in itself does not tell us that, no, we are doing so well and therefore we need to relax the intensive measures that we've put in place. We need to do so even more now. The lockdown is one part of it, very useful part, but there are continuing measures we can do, and as citizens and as individuals, if we could only abide by these and adhere to this, we can do ourselves a lot more of good and to the community and to the nation as well. So we shouldn't relax and think that things are getting so well so we can be out in the street jubilating and doing all the things that we are not supposed to do. That will not bode well for us as a country.
Prof. Yosin, based on the numbers, I know the president considered many things, many factors in deciding to lift the lockdown. But based on the numbers alone, would you have advised the president to lift the lockdown?
For us, and within the context of health, we would have wished the lockdown continued a bit further. But as you rightly said, the president takes a broader view of things. There are socio-economic factors to consider, and you look at it in totality, and therefore you need to take a decision that will be in the interest of all. For us as health workers, we would have wished, and in terms of disease control, we would have wished it continued a bit. But we also agree, on the other hand, that things must be done so that we will not compromise the life of people who will die rather from other conditions than the COVID. So in totality, the judgment called by the president took into consideration other factors, as he rightly said, including health. But for us as health workers, and from the technical point of view, we would have wished if the lockdown had continued a bit longer, so that the gains we are making would have continued. Yeah.
Just before Roland comes in, last night, Dr. Nsiah-Sarrey, who advises the president, gave us the numbers, the modeling for Ghana. So they are expecting that, according to their models, 10% of our population will get infected by COVID-19. Out of that 10%, they expect 5% of them will be seriously ill. So 10% of our population, that's 3 million. If we are working with a 30 million population, 3 million will get infected. 5% of that will be seriously ill. That's 150,000 people. And out of the 5%, 10% of them are expected to die according to the modeling. That would be 15,000 people. But Dr. Nsiah-Sarri feels that Ghana's situation is unique, and as a result, we may not end up at 15,000 deaths. Now, the analysis we've been looking at also shows that our death rate is lower than the global numbers. Could that be simply because of what you said, the fact that we've been observing the numbers from a lot earlier than the rest of the world? Do you also agree that 15,000 deaths, according to the model, might be too high?
Yes, certainly. I must say that, as Dr. Nsiah-Sarri said, it's modeling. And in modeling, you take, as it were, the worst case scenario is for planning purposes, so that you know this is the worst it could be. And therefore, if it so happens, is my health system able and has the capacity to deal with it? It doesn't necessarily mean it is going to happen. And that's one thing we need to emphasize, that because we are putting in a lot of measures and we are encouraging individuals to do their bit in preventing the spread of the disease, we believe strongly we may not get to this number. It doesn't mean, as I said earlier, that we should relax and feel immune. Diseases in human population behave in similar patterns. So we are not different from the rest of the world. And that's one thing we should also put across. We might have done things earlier. We might have put in measures earlier. But that does not mean we cannot suffer what others are suffering. And therefore, we need to continue to be on our guard. The numbers, as you say, modeling has a lot of assumptions. And these are assumptions. It doesn't mean it's the whole perfect truth. And therefore, that is how it is. It is the extreme, it is the worst case scenario, and you work with it so that you prepare towards it. But from historical records and for the past 5 or so weeks, we've seen the behavior of the virus and the disease in our setting. As you said, we are getting relatively lower case fatality numbers. And we hope and believe that going forward, the patterns will behave like that. So even if we get so many people getting infected, so many of them, we trust, may still remain asymptomatic, and therefore we may not get these high numbers of critical cases and these high numbers of deaths.
Right, but if modeling is for planning purposes, then have we planned for a healthcare system that can cater for 150,000 seriously sick people?
That is a challenging question. And certainly, with these numbers, our health system will be stretched. From what we have now, efforts are being made, but we still know we have challenges with PPEs for frontline workers, and that continues to be a challenge. And when we come to critical care, ventilators, critical care, emergency doctors, nurses, we have challenges with it. And that's where you see, unsurprisingly, that even in the developed countries, when the numbers surge, and there are huge numbers like that, whatever your system is, you become overwhelmed. And that is the plain truth. So we are hoping, working, putting in all the preventive measures, both individual, community, institutional, and national level, such that we won't get to this level. Because I will say honestly, we can prepare as much as possible. But when these numbers really become reality, which we hope they will not, and in fact, we are praying it doesn't, our system will then be able to cope with it. Because with these numbers, it will be, well, now impossible for our system to cope.
Now, based on what the expectation is, and based on the extrapolation of some 15,000, taken out of the 1.5, does it mean that we still are targeting a certain number because of what the incidentals have been, based on the observations because the case situation is not up to the 15,000 target as it is. So which numbers now are we looking at?
No, we will still continue to work with the 15,000, as you said, because that's the worst case scenario. And as a term that has become known these days, that you try to flatten the curve, whatever it is, whatever measures you need to put in place to flatten the curve as much as possible. And that is exactly what we are trying to do with all the measures put in place. So you wouldn't allow the epidemic to run a course to give you such horrible numbers. You try to do everything to stop it. And that's where in general disease prevention, you do this through different means. Unfortunately for this epidemic, there is no confirmed effective, efficient treatment and no vaccine. You may do these projections, but if tomorrow we get a vaccine, then you see that certainly that projection will not be what is going to happen. So it depends on what measures we put in place. And going forward, we still need to continue to work as if this is what is the reality and all the measures need to be put in place. So we don't relax at all.
And with every strategy implementation, you then go back to the drawing table, look at another, the last count when you had a report, that's the Ghana Health Service, there was an observation which is indicating that we have had everything under control. However, we've had a situation where our recoveries are not close to what the global and the African figures are. What could be the implications of this?
Okay, first I must put in perspective. The definition for recovery differs from place to place. There is a standard that before you declare somebody recovered, the person should have 2 consecutive negative tests. We are not certain about or sure about what pertains in other African countries. But as you said, globally, yes, we have quite a number who are currently in treatment or on treatment or in treatment centers, who we are hoping will be tested, and the second test comes as negative, we can have the recoveries. We have high numbers who are potentially getting there, and we believe in the next few days or weeks, we will get these numbers because we have cases that have turned negative on the first test, and then the second test, hopefully, become negative again. Then we can declare this as recovered. So I don't think the situation in Ghana is completely different from what is in other places. Probably the delay in receiving our test results, because we are a little challenged in that, might account for that. If we had the capacity to do all these tests immediately and release results, you see that our recovery rate will gradually increase because the numbers are there, over 500 people potentially in the line to recovery.
Now, within the period since we lifted the lockdown, there's a high possibility that we'll have a lot of influx or movement to and fro of people who fall in the category of being asymptomatic because of good reasons, but could have a good immune system and so not get to relapse stages. But they will keep transmitting. And they could even recover within that same period where they have been infected, but could transmit to others within the period. What is the estimation you health professionals have? That could be the number, that could be the cases recorded because of movements within the lifting of the lockdown period.
Yes, it's all factored into the modeling that was done. Because if you have a high number of asymptomatic cases, unless you go out there to test everybody at the community or population level, the disease will continue to spread. So that went into, I pretty much believe, the modeling. But as it is, we need to continue resources being provided to continue to do the testing.
Last question.
And also, what we should be moving on to is doing the antibody testing. See, that will tell really how many people out there have a sort of immunity or have become infected without us knowing, but the body itself has developed resistance or immunity to it. So for your question, going forward, the best approach to me or for me will be to include the antibody test at the population level. That will really help us. Whilst we're doing the PCRs, we need to get to know how many people out there. Probably we can start with the essential workers, essential things, so that we can get people back into business, back into their places, knowing very well that, yes, these are potentially people that are not going to transmit infection to others. So we need to step up further with the antibody testing. Now that we've had the condition for quite a while in our sector, it is one sure way of curtailing the spread within communities by asymptomatic persons.
Is it now then the strategy that we're hoping that we're going to have a gamble and herd immunity could come in? And so these antibodies that have been developed by the bulk of the population could help as we lay in wait for a vaccine to be approved ultimately here in Ghana?
I think that will rather be a lazy approach for any health manager to take. We cannot leave, as we say, the natural course of the disease to progress. We need to put in interventions, and we cannot. So for now, wherever there is a positive case, we need as much as possible to widen the net. It's not only the immediate contact, but all those localities, and that's one approach that is being adopted at the district and lower levels. Once we identify a household, it's not only that household, but all the members of the community. So as it were, we don't leave it only for the natural development of herd immunity, but you try as much as possible to also sieve out those who potentially will be transmitting the disease, isolate them and manage them. Even if they are asymptomatic, we still manage them, keep them in isolation, and then monitor them so they don't transmit to others as they move about freely.
Well, thank you very much.
If you had not put in any intervention, yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Alfred Yorson, also part of this wider network of professionals working to make sure that Ghana has a certain hold on fighting coronavirus. But next, we have to take a break. When we come back, we'll tell you a little bit about Joy Learning, which is introducing new programs, and I tell you, you're going to love them. Well, so we told you about Joy Learning, and we have the channel coordinator here for Joy Learning, Nana Ya Esiedu. Nana, how are you? Now, tell me, what's new on Joy Learning?
Roland, thank you very much. And then I want to say hello to all parents and then students who have stayed home for since the closure of schools. I'm just here to, first of all, introduce Joy Learning. Joy Learning is one of Multimedia's latest television platform, solely dedicated to education. We are here because we have beautiful concepts that we are introducing. We have the Reversion Show and we have the Joy Learning Trivia Riddles. There's been so many noise making about e-learning, distance learning. And Joy Learning, together with Multimedia, together with our partners Wolo, SES, and KNET, we anticipated a lot of challenges, even though at that time COVID-19 had not even come into place. We came together as one, and then we, taking into consideration the double track system, we thought of bringing out this fruitful idea, fruitful concepts that has has paid well for a lot of people, a lot of students out there, and that's how come the Joy Learning channel came into place. So currently, we have looking at the system now. We have realized that a lot of students also have access to smartphones, and they are not using the smartphones as they are supposed to do. A lot of students are not using their smartphones for school-related issues. So we have looked at the space, and Joy Learning has decided that, okay, so after television lessons, what's next? We have decided to take over the space on social media by introducing two beautiful concepts. So first of all, I would want to talk about the Joy Learning Trivia Riddles. The Joy Learning Trivia Riddles is basically going to be used on social media. Today, if you go to our platform, you see a daily post. There's a post on our platform. You post daily there? Yes. Wow. There's a post. We have put a riddle on our platform. A very simple but interesting fun. We just want to create and drive fun on our platform. So if you go there right now, if you're a student and you are watching us right now, you can actually visit Joy Learning TV on Facebook and then Joy Learning on Twitter. Immediately you get there, you see the riddle for the day. You just have to post your answer to the question, and then by the close of the day, we have in-house examiners who will visit the page, and then we come together with the best answers. The best answers, we select the winners from Facebook, from Twitter, and an Instagram page. Wow. Then we come up with a beautiful acknowledgement for them. Because of the fact that we know that at their age, in secondary, senior high schools, JHS level, we are giving them opportunity to brag. We are giving them the bragging rights. We are acknowledging them. We are going to feature their picture, a little profile about them, and then we give opportunity to also advertise the school also. So yesterday we had a winner from Tamale Secondary School. We actually advertised, we promoted our students from morning till evening,
especially now. From the schools that they're coming from. Yes, please, wow.
from the schools they are coming from. So Tamale Secondary School happened to be our first winner of our riddle, the riddle for the day on Joy Learning.
But also to wrap up, it means that it's a continuous level of improved programming, just to make sure that you keep in touch with people, and the interaction would always go on through social media. But how do we want to aggregate all this by involving more parents?
Okay, so it's good. Because we have started basically using television throughout. Parents have been also complaining that they are right after the television lesson, the direction of the students is lost. So we are also giving parents, because parents also have access to smartphones, to it, but you can do it with your son or daughter. It is open for all, but our target is for the senior high school students.
Wow. So, and all involving family learning, and yes. The student knows what he or she is learning, but also involving the parents or the guardians at home. And this time, as a right way for us to go. But look, I have to say thank you very much for great introduction and improvement on content on Joy Learning. And we've had the channel manager for Joy Learning, Nanaya Siedu.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you too. In the meantime, we have to take a break. When we come back, we'll wrap up with some showbiz news.